Denzel Washington visited DMX at 2 a.m., found him praying with his dogs. What he saw changed how he understood faith forever. Los Angeles, California, September 2004, 2:17 a.m. Denzel Washington's car pulled up to the address DMX had texted him 3 hours earlier. Just an address. No explanation. No context. Just, if you're serious about that conversation, come through. I'll be up. The house was modest. Not what you'd expect for one of the biggest rappers in the world. No gates, no security. Just a regular house in a regular neighborhood with lights on in the backyard. Denzel sat in his car for a moment. He'd met DMX briefly at an industry event 2 weeks ago. They'd talked for maybe 10 minutes. But in those 10 minutes, something had connected. Two men of faith. Two black men trying to navigate success without losing their soul. Two people who understood that fame was a test, not a reward. DMX had said, "You ever want to really talk, not that Hollywood bullshit, but really talk, hit me up. Anytime. I'm always awake." Denzel had taken his number, not sure if the offer was real. But tonight, after a long day of thinking about his next role, his career, his purpose, he'd sent a text. "You up?" The response came immediately. The address, and come alone. Now sitting in his car at 2 a.m. in front of this house, Denzel wondered what he was doing. He was Denzel Washington, two-time Oscar winner, respected actor, family man, deacon in his church, and he was about to walk into a rapper's house at 2 a.m. because of a vague spiritual connection. But something told him to go. So he got out of the car. Before he could knock, the front door opened. DMX stood there in sweatpants and a white t-shirt. No bandana, no jewelry, just Earl. Raw and unguarded. "You came," DMX said, not surprised, just acknowledging. "You said any time. I meant it. Come on." DMX led him through the house. It was clean but simple. No gold records on the walls, no awards, just a home. They walked through the kitchen, past a living room where Denzel could hear soft gospel music playing, and out to the backyard. And that's when Denzel stopped. The backyard wasn't large, but it was full. 20, maybe 25 dogs of all sizes. Pit bulls, Rottweilers, German Shepherds, small terriers. All of them calm, many sleeping, some sitting alert but peaceful. And in the center of the yard, a small cleared space with a blanket on the ground. "This is where I pray," DMX said simply. Denzel didn't know what to say. He'd expected, what? A studio? A party? Some kind of industry networking? Not this. Not a backyard full of rescue dogs and a prayer space. "Have a seat," DMX said, gesturing to the blanket. "Or don't. You can stand. I don't care. I'm just gonna do what I was doing." DMX sat down cross-legged on the blanket. Immediately, 3 dogs moved closer, positioned themselves around him. One large Rottweiler lay down with its head near DMX's knee. A smaller terrier curled up against his leg. A pit bull sat just behind him like a guardian. And DMX closed his eyes, tilted his head back slightly, and began to pray. Not performed prayer, not the kind you do when you know someone's watching. Real prayer, the kind that comes from the gut, the kind that's more cry than words. "God," DMX said, his voice rough, "I'm here again, still broken, still struggling, still trying to figure out why you gave me this voice, this platform, this life, when all I feel is pain most days." Denzel stood frozen. This was private, intimate. He shouldn't be witnessing this, but DMX had invited him, had told him to come, had opened this moment. "I know I mess up," DMX continued. "I know I know I fail, I know I'm not the man you called me to be, but I'm trying, God. You know I'm trying, and these dogs," his voice broke slightly. "These dogs you sent me, they're the only pure thing in my life, the only love that doesn't come with conditions or judgment, or disappointment. When I'm too high to function, they love me. When I'm broke and can barely feed them, they love me. When I hate myself, they see something worth love." One of the dogs, the Rottweiler, lifted its head and licked DMX's hand. DMX's fingers moved to scratch behind its ears without opening his eyes. "So I'm thanking you for them, for this." His hand gestured to encompass the dogs around him. "For showing me what your love looks like. Because I sure as hell couldn't see it in humans, couldn't see it in my mother, couldn't see it in the industry, couldn't see it in the mirror. But I see it in them, in the way they wait for me, in the way they forgive, in the way they exist in this moment, without carrying yesterday's pain into today. That's you, isn't it? That's your love, pure, present, unconditional. Denzel felt tears forming. He'd been to church his whole life, had heard thousands of sermons, had prayed countless prayers. But this raw, unpolished conversation with God, in a backyard full of rescue dogs, this felt more real than any formal worship he'd experienced. DMX was quiet for a long moment. The dogs were completely still. The only sound was distant traffic and the soft gospel music from inside the house. Finally, DMX spoke again, quieter this time. Help me be more like them. Let me live in the moment you've given me instead of the past that's killing me. Help me love, without condition, the way they love. Help me trust you the way they trust me. Completely, without question, without doubt. He paused. And if I don't make it, if the drugs win, if the pain wins, if I can't survive this, let these dogs know they saved me as long as they could. Let them know they were your hands, your voice, your love made flesh and fur and wet noses, and wagging tails. Amen. The word hung in the air for a moment, then DMX opened his eyes, looked directly at Denzel like he'd known exactly where he was standing the whole time. That's what I do every night, DMX, around 2 a.m. when the world is quiet, and I can't sleep because the demons are too loud. I come out here, I sit with them, and I pray. Do you always pray with them? Denzel asked, his voice rough, with emotion. Always. They're part of it. They're the proof that God hears, that he sends help even when I don't deserve it. Denzel moved closer, sat down on the edge of the blanket. A German shepherd immediately came over, sniffed him, then lay down with its head on Denzel's foot. You don't mind? Denzel asked. Mind what? Me being here. This seems private. DMX smiled slightly. It is private. That's why I invited you. Because you asked for real. Not Hollywood real. Not industry real. Real. And this, he gestured to the yard, the dogs, the prayer space. This is the realest thing in my life. Can I ask you something? Denzel said. Yeah. Why dogs? Why not people? Why not church? Why not a pastor or a mentor? Or because people lie? DMX said, simply, without bitterness, just stating fact. People judge. People have agendas. People see DMX the rapper and they want something. A verse, a connection, a photo, a story. But dogs, he looked around at the pack. Dogs see Earl, just Earl, the broken kid from Yonkers, who got beat by his mother and used by the industry and chewed up by addiction. And they love that kid. They don't love DMX. They love Earl. And that's what I need to survive. Someone, something that loves the broken parts, not despite them, but including them. That's what God does, Denzel said quietly. Yeah, that's what God does. But most people claiming to represent God don't. Most churches I've been to want me to clean up first, want me to stop cursing, stop being broken, then come back, then they'll love me. But these dogs love me right now, in this moment, high or sober, good or bad, faithful or falling. They don't wait for me to deserve it, they just give it. That's grace, Denzel. That's what I'm saying. These dogs are teaching me about grace better than any sermon ever did. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. More dogs had gathered. Denzel counted at least 30 now, all calm, all peaceful, like they understood this was sacred space. You want to pray? DMX asked. Together. Why not? You came all the way out here at 2 a.m. Might as well talk to God while you're here. Denzel smiled. All right. You start, DMX said. Denzel closed his eyes, but the words that came weren't his usual prayer, weren't the formal structured prayers he'd learned in church. Instead, what came out was honest, raw. God, Denzel began, I don't know exactly why I'm here, but I know you brought me here, brought me to this backyard at 2 in the morning to witness something I needed to see. He felt DMX's presence beside him, felt the dogs around them, felt the weight of the moment. I've been blessed, more than I deserve, success, family, health, respect, all of it. But sometimes I forget why. Forget that it's not about me. Forget that it's supposed to be for something big. And then I meet someone like Earl. He used DMX's real name, deliberately, who has everything the world says should make you happy. Fame, money, talent. But who's fighting just to survive each day. Who's so broken he can barely function. But who still shows up every night at 2 a.m. to pray with his dogs. Denzel's voice caught. That's faith. That's real faith. Not the comfortable faith I practice in my nice house with my nice family and my nice career, but the desperate faith of someone who needs you to survive one more. Help me remember that, Denzel continued. Help me remember that faith isn't about being blessed. It's about trusting you when you're broken. It's about showing up even when you're falling apart. It's about finding your prayer space, wherever it is, and meeting you there honestly. Amen, DMX said softly. Amen, Denzel echoed. They sat quietly. The gospel music from inside had stopped. The only sounds now were dogs breathing, the occasional rustle as one shifted position, distant city noise. Can I tell you something? DMX said after a while. Of course, I'm not gonna make it. Denzel's heart sank. What do you mean? I mean I'm not gonna beat this. The addiction, the pain, the demons. I've tried. God knows I've tried. Rehab, therapy, church, prayer, everything. But it's got its hooks too deep. You don't know that. I do know that. I can feel it. I'm dying slowly. Every day, every hit, every time I choose the drugs over the fight. I'm dying. Then why keep fighting? DMX looked at his dogs. For them, because they deserve someone who shows up. Someone who even if I fail, even if I don't make it, they deserve to know someone loved them enough to try. That's beautiful, Denzel said. That's survival. That's all it is, finding one thing worth staying alive for. For me, it's them. What about your music? Your kid? My kids are better off without me around to mess them up. My music's already done. Whatever legacy I'm leaving is already made. But these dogs, he gestured around, they need me now, today, this moment, and that's enough reason to survive until tomorrow. Denzel wanted to argue, wanted to give the speech about hope and healing, and never giving up. But something told him DMX didn't need platitudes. He needed honesty. You're one of the most faithful people I've ever met, Denzel said instead. DMX laughed, bitter and genuine at the same time. Man, I'm an I fail every day. I can't even stay clean for a week. How is that faithful? Because you show up, every night at 2 a.m., even when you're high, even when you hate yourself, even when you want to die. You come out here, you sit with your dogs, and you pray. That's faith. The rest is just being human. DMX was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was thick. Nobody's ever said that to me before. Said what? That the trying counts even when I fail. Everyone else, pastors, therapists, family, they make it about the results, about staying clean, about success. But you're saying just showing up is enough. I'm saying showing up is everything. Success is God's job. Showing up is yours. I'm saying showing up is everything. Success is God's job. Showing up is yours. DMX wiped his eyes. Didn't try to hide the tears. Just let them tell me about them, Denzel said, changing the subject, but not really. Tell me about the dogs. DMX's face softened. Which one? All of them. Start anywhere. DMX pointed to the Rottweiler, who'd been lying beside him the whole time. That's Grace. Found her in a fighting ring. She was the bait dog. The one they used to train the fighters. She'd been ripped apart so many times they just left her to die. When I found her, she couldn't even stand. Just lay there bleeding and broken. How did you find her? Wrong place, right time. I was in that neighborhood scoring drugs. Heard whimpering from a basement. Most people would have kept walking, but I went down there, and I saw her. Denzel looked at the dog. She looked healthy now, strong, peaceful. It took 6 months before she'd let anyone touch her without flinching. A year before she could be around other dogs without panicking. But now, Grace lifted her head, looked at DMX with complete trust, then settled back down. Now she's the gentlest dog I got. Protects the puppies, comforts the new rescues when they come in scared. It's like she decided that, because she survived hell, she's gonna make sure others don't have to. That's redemption, Denzel said. That's what I pray for me, that maybe all this pain I've been through could somehow help someone else not hurt as, that maybe my music, my story, my failures, maybe they show somebody else they can survive their own hell. He pointed to a small terrier mix. That's Faith, 3 legs, found her on the highway, hit by a car, leg was destroyed. Vet said she wouldn't make it, but I sat with her every day in that hospital, talked to her, prayed for her, and she fought. Like you. Yeah. Like me, both of us missing parts of ourselves that we'll never get back. Both of us learning to live with the brokenness instead of waiting to be whole. Denzel felt something shifting in his chest. He'd come here thinking he might offer wisdom, guidance, the perspective of someone who'd maintained faith through success. But he was the one being taught. "Can I ask you something personal?" Denzel said. "You're sitting in my backyard at 2:30 in the morning. We're past personal. Why'd you invite me? We barely know each other." DMX was quiet for a moment. "Because when we talked at that event, you didn't treat me like DM. You didn't ask for a photo or talk about my music, or any of that industry shit. You asked me how I was doing, really doing, and when I said struggling, you didn't try to fix me. You just said me too." I remember that. Most people don't admit struggle, especially successful people. They pretend everything's good, everything's blessed. But you said me too, and I saw it in your eyes. You meant it. So when you texted tonight, I knew you were really looking for something. And I figure if you're brave enough to show up at my house at 2 a.m., you deserve the real thing. Not the performance. This is the real thing. DMX gestured around. "This is all I got that's real. Everything else, the music, the fame, the persona, that's survival. That's armor. But this," he touched the dog beside him. "This is the truth. This is Earl. Broken. Trying. Failing. Praying. Surrounded by other broken things. And somehow making it through one more day." They sat quietly. More dogs had come over. Denzel now had 3 around him. It should have felt overwhelming. Instead it felt like being held, comforted. "You know what the crazy thing is?" DMX said. "Well, I got more peace, sitting in this backyard with these broken dogs, than I ever got on stage in front of 50,000 people screaming my name. More peace here than I got from #1 albums, or sold-out tours or million-dollar checks. Why? Because this is real love. No performance required, no success needed, just presence, just showing up, just being. These dogs don't care if I ever make another hit record. They care that I'm here, right now, with them. That's what God wants too," Denzel said. "Just our presence, not our performance." "Yeah, but God's invisible. Hard to trust something you can't see." "These dogs," DMX smiled. "I can see them, touch them, feel their breath, hear their heartbeats. They're God made visible for someone like me who needs proof." Denzel understood. He'd always had faith, been raised in it, maintained it through life. But DMX was describing something different. Faith born from desperation. Faith that needed tangible evidence because the invisible kind had been betrayed too many times by the humans who claimed to represent it. "Tell me about your childhood," Denzel said. If it's not too, my mother used to beat me," DMX said simply. "Not discipline, not punishment, beat me. For existing, for breathing, for being alive." Denzel stayed quiet. Let him talk. "She'd lock me in a room for days. No food, no water, just darkness. And I'd sit there thinking God had forgotten me, that if he was real he'd stop this, save me. But he never did." "So you stopped believing?" "No, that's the fucked up part. I never stopped believing. I just started believing that God existed, but didn't love me, that I was created to suffer, that my purpose was pain." "That's not true. I know that now, or I'm trying to know it. These dogs are teaching me, because when I found Grace in that basement, bleeding and broken, I didn't think this dog deserves to suffer. I thought this dog deserves to be saved. And that's when it hit me. Maybe that's how God sees me, not as someone who deserves pain, but as someone who deserves to be saved." "You do deserve to be saved. Maybe. I don't know, but I do know. These dogs deserve it, so I save them. And in saving them, maybe I'm learning to save myself." Denzel felt tears streaming down his face now. He'd come here thinking he might minister to DMX, offer the wisdom of someone with stable faith. Instead he was receiving a masterclass in what real faith looked like. Not comfortable, not clean, but raw and honest, and desperately clinging to whatever evidence of God's love could be found. "How many dogs do you have?" Denzel asked. "Right now, 37. Changes every week. I take in whoever needs help. Some stay forever, some I rehabilitate and find homes for. But there's always at least 20 or 30. How do you afford it?" "I don't. I mean I do, but barely. Every dollar I make goes to feeding them. Vet bills, medicine. I live cheap, drive an old car, don't buy jewelry anymore, don't buy clothes, just dogs. It's all dogs." "Why?" "Because they're the only thing I can control. I can't control my addiction, can't control the industry, Can't control my past or my pain, but I can control whether or not this dog eats today, whether or not that dog gets medicine, whether or not these broken animals have someone who loves them. That's enough purpose to keep me alive. A police car drove by on the street in front of the house. Both men tensed slightly, then relaxed when it kept going. You ever worry about judgment? Denzel asked. People finding out about the addiction, the struggles, people already. It's not a secret. I'm not hiding it. I'm just surviving it, day by day, and fuck anyone who judges, unless they've been where I've been, felt what I've felt, survived what I've survived. They don't get to speak on my journey, but you still pray, still believe, every night, sometimes multiple times a night, because even though I'm falling, even though I'm failing, even though I might not make it, God's still there, still listening, still sending me signs that I matter. The dogs are the signs. The dogs are everything. They're proof that broken things can heal. That love doesn't require perfection. That showing up counts even when you're falling apart. They're my Bible, my church, my evidence of grace. They prayed together 2 more times that night. Once around 3:30 a.m., when more dogs woke up and came over. Again around 4 a.m., when the first hints of dawn started showing. Each prayer rawer than the last. Each conversation with God more honest. When Denzel finally stood to leave around 4:45 a.m., his legs were stiff from sitting so long. Several dogs had fallen asleep against him. He had to carefully move them. Thank you, Denzel said. For what? For letting me see this. For being real. For teaching me what faith actually looks like. I didn't teach you nothing. Yes, you did. You taught me that faith isn't about having it all together. It's about showing up broken and trusting God anyway. You taught me that prayer doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to be honest. And you taught me that sometimes God's love comes with fur and 4 legs, and wet noses. DMX smiled, actually smiled. You gonna tell people about this? Should I? I don't care. Tell them, don't tell them. But if you do tell them the truth. Tell them I'm not a saint, I'm not healed. I'm not victory or redemption or any of that inspirational bullshit. I'm just a broken man who found some broken dogs, and we're surviving together. That's enough, Denzel said. That's enough, Denzel said. They hugged at the door. Not the industry hug, the real one. The kind that acknowledges shared truth. You can come back anytime, DMX said. 2 a.m. prayer session is always happening. I might take you up on that. I hope you do. You're good people, Denzel. Don't let the success make you forget that. Driving home as the sun started rising, Denzel felt different, changed. He couldn't quite name it, but something fundamental had shifted in how he understood faith, prayer and God's presence. He'd been practicing faith his whole life. Church every Sunday, prayers before meals, Bible study, tithing, all the outward expressions of belief. But tonight he'd witnessed something else. Faith stripped to its essence. No building, no congregation, no formal structure. Just a broken man, a pack of rescue dogs, and raw conversation with God. That became a pattern. Once a month, sometimes more, Denzel would text DMX around midnight. You up? Always the same response. Come through. And he would drive to that modest house, sit in that backyard, pray with DMX and the dogs. Sometimes they'd talk for hours. Sometimes they'd sit in silence. Sometimes they'd just be present with each other and the animals and God. Other people started coming too. DMX never advertised it, never made it a thing, but word spread among certain circles. The 2 a.m. prayer session with DMX and his dogs, a safe space for broken people to be honest with God. Denzel brought other actors sometimes, people struggling with fame, fighting addiction, dealing with trauma. DMX never turned anyone away, never judged, just invited them to sit, to pray, to be honest. In 2006, Denzel was preparing for a role that required him to understand brokenness more deeply. He asked DMX if he could spend a week just observing, living in the space of prayer and dogs and survival. Yeah, come stay, DMX said, but I'm not performing for you. You're just gonna see the real shit, the ugly shit. That's what I need to see. That week changed Denzel's acting, his understanding of human suffering, his portrayal of broken characters became deeper, more authentic, because he'd witnessed what real brokenness looked like. Not movie brokenness, real people barely surviving, held together by prayer and love and purpose. He watched DMX relapse that week,
Saw him high, saw him come down, saw him hate himself, saw him pray through it, saw the dogs love him through it, saw grace in action. This is what redemption looks like, DMX said, one morning after a rough night. Not clean victory, not triumph, just getting up one more time, praying one more prayer, loving one more day. That's all redemption is, refusing to stay down. In 2009, during one of DMX's many stints in rehab, Denzel visited, brought him books on faith, letters from people whose lives had been changed by those 2 a.m. prayer sessions. You matter, Denzel told him, more than you. You've helped more people find real faith than most pastors ever will. I'm just trying to survive, man. Exactly, and in trying to survive honestly, you're showing others how to survive their own honestly. That's ministry, real ministry, DMX cried. The ugly the kind that comes from years of feeling worthless, finally hearing that you matter. Years passed, DMX's struggles continued. Rehab, relapse, jail, more rehab. But through it all, when he was home, the 2 a.m. prayer sessions continued. The dogs stayed. The broken people kept coming. The honest conversations with God kept happening. Denzel watched from a distance sometimes, saw DMX's life spiral, wanted to save him, wanted to fix him, but remembered what DMX had taught him that first night. Success is God's job, showing up is yours. So he just showed up, kept coming to pray, kept bringing others, kept witnessing the broken beauty of faith that didn't require perfection. In March 2021, Denzel got the call. DMX had overdosed, was on life support, brain dead, family making the decision. Denzel drove to White Plains Hospital, sat with the family, prayed, but mostly he remembered that backyard, those dogs, those prayers, that raw, honest faith. When they made the decision to remove life support on April 9, 2021, Denzel was there, held DMX's hand, prayed one last time, God receive your son. This broken, beautiful, honest soul who taught more people about real faith than he ever knew, who showed up every night, at 2 a.m., even when he was falling apart, who loved broken things because he understood being broken. Take him home, let him rest. He's been fighting so long. Let him rest. At the memorial service at Barclays Center, Denzel was asked to speak. He stood at the podium, looking out at 20,000 people and told the truth. Earl Simmons taught me more about faith than anyone I've ever met, Denzel said, not because he had it all figured out, but because he was honest about not having it figured out. He showed me that prayer doesn't have to be pretty, faith doesn't have to be polished, and God's love doesn't require perfection. He paused, gathering himself. Some of you know that Earl had a backyard prayer session every night, around 2 a.m., him and his dogs and whoever needed to talk to God honestly. I was privileged to be part of that, to witness what real faith looks like. And here's what I learned. Faith isn't about being blessed and having it together. Faith is showing up broken and trusting God anyway. It's praying when you're high. It's loving when you hate yourself. It's getting up one more time, even when everything in you says stay down. Earl did that every day, not perfectly, not successfully, but honestly. And in that honesty he showed thousands of us what it really means to trust God with your brokenness instead of pretending to be whole. Denzel's voice broke. He used to say the dogs were proof that God loved him, because they loved him without condition, without judge, without requiring him to be anything other than Earl. And in loving those broken animals, he was learning to believe, maybe God loved him the same way. I believe God did love him that way. I believe God still loves him that way. I believe Earl is finally at peace. No more pain, no more addiction, no more fighting, just rest. With God, with the dogs who went before him, at peace. And I believe his legacy isn't his music, though that matters. It's not his fame, though that reached millions. His legacy is showing us that broken people can have real faith, that honest prayer matters more than perfect prayer, that showing up counts even when you fail. That's what Earl gave us. That's what I'll carry forever. The crowd stood, 20,000 people, honoring a man who'd been naked in his struggle, who'd never pretended to have victory when he was barely surviving, who'd been real when the industry demanded performance. After the service, Denzel adopted 3 of DMX's rescue dogs, the ones who'd been in that backyard the first night he visited, Grace, Faith,
and a small terrier he named Earl. Every night, around 2 a.m., Denzel sits with them, not in a backyard. He doesn't have DMX's setup, but in his home, in a quiet space, and he prays, honest prayers, broken prayers, real prayers, and sometimes, in the quiet, he swears he can hear DMX's voice. This is all faith is, just showing up, just being honest, just loving broken things, because God loves broken things, that's it. Denzel has changed how he talks about faith, publicly, less polished, more honest. He talks about struggle, about the 2 a.m. moments, when faith is all you have, and you're not even sure that's enough. He quotes DMX often, success is God's job, showing up is yours. And people respond. Because they're tired of performative faith, tired of pretending everything's blessed when it's not. They want what Denzel saw in that backyard. Real faith. Broken faith. Honest faith. The kind that admits, I don't have this figured out. I'm barely surviving. But I'm showing up. I'm praying. I'm trying. And apparently, that's enough. In 2023, Denzel did an interview about faith in Hollywood. The interviewer asked about his spiritual influences. Earl Simmons. Denzel said immediately, DMX. He taught me everything important about faith. Really? The rapper. The man. The broken, honest, beautiful man. Who showed me that God's love doesn't require perfection. That prayer is about honesty, not eloquence. That faith happens at 2 a.m. in backyards. With rescue dogs just as much as it happens in churches on Sunday morning. What's the most important thing he taught you? Denzel thought about that night. That first visit. DMX praying in the backyard. Surrounded by broken animals. Being completely honest with God about his failures and struggles and pain. He taught me that showing up broken is better than not showing up at all. That God can work with honesty but not with pretense. And that sometimes the most spiritual people are the ones who never claim to be spiritual. They're just surviving honest, and in that honest survival they reveal more about God's grace than 1,000 polished sermons ever could. Do you still do the 2 a.m. prayers? Every night, with Grace, Faith, and Earl. My 3 rescues. We sit together. I pray. They listen. And I feel Earl's presence. Not literally, but spiritually. The lesson continuing. The honest faith, persisting. What do you pray for? The same thing Earl prayed for. To be more like the dogs. Present. Forgiving. Loving without condition. Trusting without doubt. Living in this moment instead of being destroyed by the past. And does it work? Some nights. Some nights I'm just going through the motions. But Earl taught me that going through the motions counts too. That showing up when you don't feel it is sometimes more faithful than showing up when you do. Because it means you're choosing faith over feeling, choosing presence over comfort. The interviewer was quiet for a moment. Then, that's beautiful. That's Earl. That's what he gave us. That's what the dogs gave him. That's what God gives all of us if we're honest enough to receive it. Grace for the broken. Love for the struggling. Presence for the trying. Real recognize real. Denzel finished. And Earl was the realest person I ever met. In his brokenness. In his honesty. In his refusal to pretend he had it together. That's real faith. That's real love. That's real grace. And somewhere in whatever comes after, Earl Simmons sits with his dogs. Finally at peace. Finally free from the pain that chased him his whole life. Finally able to receive the love he spent his life giving to broken things. And God says, well done, good and faithful servant. You showed up even when you were broken. You prayed even when you were failing. You loved even when you hated yourself. That's all I ever asked. That's all faith ever is. Just showing up honest. You did that. You're home now. Rest. And Earl rests. With his dogs. With God. In peace. And down on earth at 2 a.m. People still gather. In backyards and living rooms and quiet spaces. With their own broken animals or broken hearts or broken faith. And they pray. Honest prayers. Real prayers. DMX prayers. And grace still happens. Love still flows. God still meets broken people in the 2 a.m. darkness and says, I see you. I love you. Keep showing up. That's enough. That's the legacy. That's the lesson. That's what DMX gave us through dogs and prayers and honest brokenness. Just show up. Just be honest. Just love what's broken. Because God loves what's broken. That's faith. That's grace. That's everything.